Well, what is it currently? Noon, I should say, everyone. Here in my town, it's 12 noon. In UK, it's still 11. And in other places, we will also have maybe evening or morning. Welcome everyone again to the session of the conference where we will listen to the work of the technical committees. Earlier today, we already listened to 3 very interesting presentations by 3 technical committees that had recently been closed or reached the end of their lifetime. And now we are back to listen again to 3 more committees presenting their results. So I'm happy to share this session. My name is Nele de Bailey. I'm the chair of the Technical Activities Committee, who is monitoring all the activities actually of these separate technical committees. And the first presentation will be on CCF, that's the code of the committee, 261 CCF, creep behavior in cracked sections of fiber reinforced concrete. So I invite Professor Pedro Serna-Ros from UPV Spain to share his screen, so since he will give this presentation live, so it's not a pre-recorded presentation. So I see that the screen sharing is working. Thank you, Pedro. The floor is yours. Pedro, I guess you will have to unmute your microphone.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you hear me? Is correct?
Yes, now we can hear you, but the presentation is gone.
Okay.
Now we can see it. You just have to go to the full screen. Yeah, that's it. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. I'm Pedro Serna from the Polytechnic University of Valencia, and I will talk about the activities of the creep behavior, the technical committee 261 CCF on creep behavior in cracked sections of fiber reinforced concrete. I will start with some specific aspect on creep and also thinking of fiber reinforced concrete, the origins and the objectives of the technical committee, and our activities. Well, starting on reinforced concrete, when we comment or when we talk on creep, we are always thinking in that creep depends on the delayed deformation in the concrete because compression. And we usually consider that rebars do not creep. And for the structural design, and that is not too clear to predict even in traditional reinforced concrete, we usually affect the modulus of elasticity by a creep coefficient that change the deformation on the time. And also we can apply some beta coefficient thinking on if section is cracked or not, or other parameters related with evaluation of the cracks. Well, finally, we have usually a table like this where we apply different coefficients that can change lots. And then we have not a logical defined criteria even for standard concrete. When we introduce fiber reinforced concrete in the model code, it appears one of the first aspects is that if a warning thinking on if you used synthetic fibers, you must consider the possibility of you have a creep effect of the fibers by itself. And if you do that, you must take into account this effect. But there is never a criteria to evaluate that. There is no criteria to apply creep in fiber reinforced concrete, nor if there is synthetic or if there is steel or other type of fiber. And this, even when we talk on the Eurocode 2 that is coming, in this case, only steel fibers are accepted and the others not. Why? Maybe because we continue with the warning on we have not to experience, or we are panic thinking on creep. Well, fiber reinforced concrete usually is characterized by a flexural test in a notched specimen and defined two parameters: the residual strength after cracking in this specimen at a low crack opening, then 0.5 millimeter, or long crack opening 2.5, thinking on serviceability or ultimate limit state. With this concept, we develop lots of structural behavior aspects with fiber reinforced concrete. It's clear if we try to analyze one direction structural element, if you use only fibers, you will have a crack, and the fibers are responsible of the equilibrium. And this case is clear that you have problems, or you must to consider effect of long-term behavior of the fiber in this crack. Because if fiber reduce its contribution, deflection will increase. Even in this case, or you work in a very high level of fibers content or residual capacity of the fiber reinforced concrete, or you work with a enough safety coefficient, and then you work in not cracked specimens. In the right case, when you work with rebars, you can have a crack, and in this case, you have a big redistribution. If fiber has a loss of capacity because creep, this loss of capacity is always absorbed by the rebars. In this case, maybe the effect of creep are not so important. Then usually we work with that, but if you think in fibers, usually you think in a very structural redundancy. And then we work on 2D or 3D elements. Then thinking on big redundant structures, the creep effect will be diffused into the redistribution of stresses. When you need really a problem is when you work in a 1D element without rebar, rebars. Even for the other effects like shear, usually we work with sections where you never have cracks in service. It's clear that creep is a phenomenon that happens that we need to consider in service conditions. Then for shear, usually creep is not more an important problem. Then we need to look for a creep test, thinking on fiber reinforced concrete and at the material level in cracked sections. This way, we will characterize this problem, the problem of this question of the characterizing the material, and to be able to translate these concepts or those concepts to the structural issues of the structural design. Well, if we look for in the bibliography, we have lots of different methodologies. There are people working on pull-out tests in single fibers inside the concrete, or you have people trying to test reinforced concrete and analyze the difference between a fiber concrete or a normal or a structural concrete. Well, it's clear that thinking in the previous concept, the important is to define the behavior of the material, not the fiber alone, or not in the big structures, but to think in the material. And then we have a test thinking on direct tension like this, a specimen where you apply a constant load and you conserve that. Or you make a test with elements working in flexural in 1, 2, 3 different shapes. This is the most frequent in the market of the research. But when you are working in tunneling, usually people working in tunneling use square panels. Then make a square panel supported in all the contour and applying a central loading, thinking in the effect of supports on the tunneling concrete. Well, it is clear that if we want to understand the material, the most clear and simple element or methodology that the direct tension load is clear to understand, but it's very difficult because it's not a stable test. If we are thinking in creep, we need to think in 1 year or long-term test. Then this is difficult to be done, but if you go in the opposite until to plates, the problem is to understand what it happens in this test. Then more easy is the test, more difficult is to understand the result. There is a final question that is important to detect for all the methodologies we know in the bibliography, is that no problem what is the methodology after a creep test, a long-term applying load. If we analyze the residual capacity of the elements, you have a big, the same capacity than the elements that was not pre-cracked and that was not applied in the creep test. Then for ultimate limit state, if you don't have a problem in the service time, you have always the same ultimate capacity. Well, in this way, we try to organize, because we detect that there are lots of methodologies, very different methodologies. We organize this Rhineland committee and try, and I was selected as the chairman because I was the only one that was proposed that, and as secretary Sergio Cavallaro was accepted to collaborate with us, and Aitor Llano, that is my main support in the Polytechnic University of Valencia. Okay, the objective was first to coordinate research efforts and to generate a big volume of data to be able to compare different methodologies, analyze the structural repercussions, and to propose a unified test method. Of course, not only the unified test method, but the parameters that will characterize the creep. If possible, to analyze also the variables that influence creep. The group was start working, and we worked at a 12 meeting in different points. You have that with more important attendee when we worked in coordination with important other event in the creep workshop or the BFIP of 2016, but always all the meetings we have at least 12, 13 people. Okay. Well, what as activities we propose first to organize a workshop, after to propose a big round-robin test, and to be able to finish with a test methodology. If possible, we wanted also to organize a state-of-the-art we consider necessary in the same process. Well, the workshop was the easier activity. Of course, if you talk all the people working in a topic, is relatively easy to meet. We select Valencia for the meeting, and I think most of the people working in CRIP were there, and they are also the people that worked in all the activities of the technical committee. Then this is a big picture, the work. Well, in the workshop, we organized a total of 35 attendees with 18 papers on the influence of type of fiber, the CRIP material, on special materials, on special concretes, of course, the test methodology, that was one of the main aspects, and the influence of the criteria of the applying load. Well, also we organize in parallel two roundtables, thinking in the first methodology, second in the structural repercussions of the CRIP. Well, with that we organize, we have produced a first product, the document of the workshop. The second idea was to organize a round-robin test. Why? Because we have lots of methodologies. Each researcher uses own methodology with significant differences, and there are very low amount of studies comparing different procedures, and in this way it's difficult to compare. Then we proposed to do this round-robin test, and the objective was that compare, be able to compare, and be able to select the most supported by the experience methodology to be proposed as a standard procedure. Okay. Then for the round-robin test, we have a good response. 19 laboratories everywhere in the world assumed to contribute that. And this is the list of all the participants in the round-robin test that also, of course, participate in all the activities of the technical committee. The idea was to produce only concrete, only strength normal concrete, 35-45 megapascals in compressive strength, with two variables only. That means the type of fibers. We worked with synthetic fiber and steel fibers, and of course the main cost of the project was supported by the fibers producers. Two types of fibers, but thinking in a similar structural behavior. Then the same capacity of ultimate limit state, the same FR3 for both elements. We produce that with in a good capability, and of course the dosage of fibers is not the same, but the mechanical properties, the performance of the concrete at FR3 are similar. The production was a volume of 20 tons of specimens that were cast close to Valencia and distributed, then only one point of production, and distributed everywhere in the world with different test methodologies. What technologies? Well, all the participants select what is his own or recommended methodology and how much specimens is able to test. And then this is the list of different methodologies, and that can be one of the starting point result, that we have 12 laboratories working in flexural, only 2 finally working in direct tension, 3 in plates, and only 1 working in round panel test. Then there is lots of test methodologies, but there is not expertise in the lots of test methodologies. Well, In a CRIP test, usually, thinking in a flexural test, for instance, but similar applicable to the others, we organize a specimen with, in this case, a pre-cracked cracked specimen. We apply a load until crack and residual crack opening. We have the residual capacity. We upload the element. Then we have this element that is pre-cracked. And this element that is pre-cracked, we send to the CRIP stage. Then, in the same conditions, we apply a similar load, a percentage of the residual capacity of this element. And then we conserve this load during a time. For this case, we use 1 year load application, CRIP stage. After the CRIP stage, we upload the specimen and reload until failure. We can organize a complete process like this: pre-cracking, CRIP period, and post-cracking until failure. Then we are able to evaluate residual capacity. Well, one of the points is what we want to analyze. Then if we want to analyze the CRIP behavior, we must think in service condition, then a crack opening that can be assumed in service. And then we select 0.5 millimeters for flexural, 0.2 for direct tension, and 2 millimeters as deflection in the panel test. Of course, the reference, as we are thinking in service, the reference for applying load is the FR1 and then the capacity after pre-cracking. And the percentage of the maximum load, the residual load in this case, is usually accepted the 50% or the 60% for panel test. This is an interesting point because usually for service condition we apply lower value because we have low capacity, but because we want to conserve that. But if we want to have a result, we need to go in the higher level. This is why we apply a 50% and not a lower value that can be more frequent in service. Of course, the time is the same and the environmental conditions are the same. And we proposed, we asked for all the people to send us all the results of his process. Then for each laboratory, we have the results of pre-cracking, the values of pre-cracking, and several points during all the time of the production. Well, the first point is we have lots of variability. We expected that because we have different details methodologicals, even if we talk in different methods, but we are able to compare all the details. And we do a previous study for analyzing the variability results. Of course, the fibers, we are able to separate the effect of different factors. That is very important because the statistical analysis was able to produce that. Fibers are influent and have a different effect, it's clear. The load applied and the intensity of load applied are also important, but as we work always in a relatively constant value, these values are not too influent in the final results. And that we detect also is the effect of the type of the laboratory working. We were able to classify laboratories in clusters. Then the cluster A with 7 laboratories, the cluster B only 2 laboratories, and 3 individual laboratories that were clearly those that produce a methodology clearly different. This is thinking only in flexural test. Well, we did an important work trying to analyze those phenomena and what are the influent parameters. One of the most important was to compare what people says and people do. Then to trying to analyze that, we organize a very big checklist that sent all the laboratories to assess not what do you think you are doing, but what are the details of your procedure. And this way, even including pictures of the supports, pictures of the procedure, pictures of the system of application, times in all the process, and we are able to justify why those differences. It's clear that in Flexural you have the cluster A that is the most supported with all the laboratories, the cluster B that has two different aspects than working in single specimens and applying only central load, then change a little in the criteria of the procedure, but only two laboratories are able to do that because they need lots of surface for the same test. For the square panel, the result was very different because each laboratory applied different level of load, even that it was prepared to perform that. Of course, in row panel, we have only one laboratory and direct tension is feasible, but the number of specimens were very low and the number of laboratories are also low. Then it's difficult to guarantee a methodology to be supported by the standard. The support conditions were also difficult to understand, but I think it's less important as influence, but the details must to be coordinated. And
Pedro, sorry, I do not know how many slides you have remaining, but we are actually...
No, I finish in 2 minutes. I have 2 minutes. Okay, sorry. Then we analyze also the creep coefficients that we have a problem to detect what was the instantaneous load applications, because the time of applying the forces was fast. In some cases, I'm too slow in others. And then we decided to think in a creep coefficient, thinking in a definition of the time to apply load. To define the crack opening rate is more difficult to justify because we need a tendency curve to be able to define. And with that, we have the results. The result is a big database with more than 50,000 data on the results of the test. Then may be important. You have here a picture of different data that you have, and this database will be accessible for all research public to be able to analyze that. Of course, we will do the round robin test report to be published as a ReLEM state of the art that must to be finished in this month. And this is the index. And you will be able to produce a recommendation. At this moment, the recommendation is thinking only in flexural test with the concept we are presented here and with all the details in the procedure organized. This is the index. The only question is if we conserve or not the crack opening rate as a reference, or we assume keep out this detail. Well, then the objectives I think are supported in the first part. Maybe we need to continue, or we need other people to continue thinking the structural repercussion of this effect. But the test methodology will be proposed maybe in this week or in the next days. Thank you for your attention. I'm sorry for the time.
No problem. Thank you, Pedro, for this nice overview of the work of your technical committee. Clearly, a lot has happened in this period. Let's see if there are any questions in the question and answer session. I don't see many at the moment. I think these are still questions from the previous session that I see in the box. If anyone has a question at the moment, please type your question in the question and answer.
Okay, in any case, I am free to answer for each one.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't see questions for the moment, but maybe attendants are still thinking about questions, and maybe we can check also the question and answers later, and you can then maybe answer by typing your answers directly to the participants. Thanks again. So since we are running a little bit, but not much, fortunately, behind schedule, I suggest to continue with the next presentation.